In quantifying our investment risk appetite, we move beyond shorter term or traditional measures of risk. If our sole focus was on mitigating shorter term market volatility, we would likely compromise our longer term objectives.
Protecting our reputation, making sure that we understand the expectations and the experiences and perceptions of our stakeholders is really important. It allows us to stay focused on the long term. It allows us to avoid getting distracted by short-term objectives or distractions. But it also allows us to maintain that latitude to pursue more complex or less familiar strategies that are a really important part of delivering strong long-term risk-adjusted return.
The dialogue between directors and risk professionals is not one way. Risk professionals can benefit greatly from the external perspectives and experience that directors bring to the discussion. I know that's certainly the case for us. We have a board that's very actively engaged in discussing long-term risks with management.
We always keep a 15-year return perspective front and center when we communicate with our board, so that we don't lose track of what is the long-term track record of our portfolio, and also we are in this for the long term and should have expectations that there will be bumps as we move along, but we always circle back on it and say, hey, look, we have been doing this for a long time. This is our long-term investment process and shouldn't lose focus on that.
If you think about an asset manager, we can service our clients much better if we understand in what environment they operate, what constraints they deal with, what regulatory pressures and what their objectives are long term. For our asset owners, I think it is vital to understand what exactly they're getting into with asset managers, so they understand when the strategy is likely to do particularly well, and what are environments that are more difficult for strategy. I think any forum where asset owners and asset managers can come together and think about long-term risk is particularly helpful. There's a ton of tools available to think for us about whether it's performance or risk on a shorter term. There's not quite as much available for the longer term. And so having a group of people and peers to think about these challenges, what that means for our business and how we can best develop tools or think about these metrics, I think is particularly helpful.
It was of great value for us in exchanging ideas and opinions with like-minded investors. It definitely helped us kind of anchor our thinking and also challenge the way we look at managing risks over longer horizons.
In regards to investment risk, we are always interested in new methods of looking at really an old concept. And I feel that by having a broad group giving input in on the same topic, there's ways that you can present the risk, there's a way you can measure it that has worked in certain situations. So it's very good to have a working group that kind of does that for you, so you don't have to go through and test all of them yourself.
By participating in and referencing FCLT research, it allows us to engage with like-minded organizations that share the view that we must encourage longer-term thinking in business and investment decisions. For us, as an investor, that means being an active lender and owner in the companies in which we invest, but also for our total portfolio, it's continually improving the way we incorporate long-term factors and trends into our portfolio construction and risk management activities.
Hearing this diversity of views, understanding different perspectives on how other organizations are approaching similar tasks or even different tasks can really help us get a better sense of how we can approach it.